This phrase is one that immediately grabs a husband's attention. It ranks alongside "honey, we have to talk," which usually means trouble or dissatisfaction, and "does this dress look good on me," where honesty or compliments are sought. These are situations where navigating can feel like walking a tightrope. There's no clear way to emerge unscathed. You either take a chance and hope for the best, or employ subtle tactics like reassuring with gentle words. The "if you love me" plea anticipates objections, while the "I just did this for you so" tactic tries to balance requests with preemptive trades. Then there's the classic "I'll make it worth your while," often backed by flirtation or gestures meant to entice. Dealing with most of these is manageable for me, but "honey, I've been thinking" poses a challenge. I could diffuse the situation with a quick, humorous remark like "Congratulations, dear, there's a first time for everything," but avoiding the couch is preferable, so I've learned to hold my tongue well. This time, though, I should have spoken up. I should have cut off what she was about to say, because her idea completely killed any desire I had to be intimate with her. "Yeah, the couch seems like a good option today. Our lives have changed a lot. The kids are grown, we're financially stable, and we have no worries. But we're still stuck in the routines we've followed for the past 25 years. Get up, go to work, come home, make dinner, kiss goodnight, go to sleep, repeat the next day. I want something more exciting in my life." I pondered it. I thought about our routines. I suggested more weekend travel, fun day trips to nearby places. I proposed increasing our subscriptions to ballet, which she loves, and our local baseball team, which I love. I suggested buying a boat or motorcycle, taking tennis or dance lessons, joining a bowling league, going on garden tours, or participating in book exchanges. These were all things we had once dreamed of or briefly tried together, hoping to reignite some passions to inject excitement into a life that left my lovely lady feeling stagnant. My ideas fell flat, each one crashing and burning, until I jokingly proposed switching nightly kisses with weekly sex and vice versa. I was just kidding, I assured her. Actually, something along those lines is what I had in mind. Imagine my surprise. "Honey, we're 48 years old. We have sex once every week or two. I know you'd like more, but it's just so boring." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You've been the only man I have ever loved, and always will be, so I don't want you to get all huffy, I want you to hear me out." This couldn't be good. Diana was always direct, never beating around the bush. Something significant was clearly on her mind. "You are also the only man I ever made love to, and that has me curious. I find myself wondering what's out there. You've always made me happy in bed, but Denise says..." And there it was. Denise. I should have known. She was wild, fun, and unconventional, a magnet for anything involving nudity or sex. Just half a year out of her third marriage, she was on the hunt for husband number 4, having profited well from each divorce. She lived in a lavish mansion on 5 acres by the country club and maintained a substantial bank account, thanks to hefty child support payments from her 3 children, each fathered by a different wealthy ex-husband. Denise had visited every nude beach in the country, frequented swinging cruises, knew the hottest clubs, and wore the sexiest fashions. She was the kind of woman who could wear 6-inch stilettos to a church picnic without raising an eyebrow. Lust seemed to ooze from her, and she happened to be my wife's best friend. And I'm doing myself a great disservice if I don't explore other men before I get too old. So, what I propose is that I start going out with Denise on Friday nights and delve into her world. This is the perfect time, before I start looking all old and saggy, and with the kids gone, there's no one to hurt. No one to hurt? My stomach churned, threatening to empty its contents right there in the living room. What about me? "Oh honey, Denise mentioned you might feel jealous, but remember, I only love you, and I always will. You had experiences with other women before we met, so you know what it's like out there. I only know you. Don't I deserve to sample some other flavors?" "Diana, what if you find one of these other flavors so enticing that you can't give it up? What if you come to love someone else? What happens to me? I stand to lose everything if you go through with this, and so do you. We have a perfect life, and in a couple of years, we'll both retire. We can travel, explore, and do it all together. We're on the brink of our golden years, where we can reignite the intense feelings we had as kids before we became parents. What's in this for me? You know, even in a no-fault divorce state, the man gets taken to the cleaners if I even think about. No, you've got it wrong. I don't want to divorce you ever. I want us to stay together. Honey, I want our golden years to be amazing too. Even though Denise talks about how financially beneficial divorces can be, I can't imagine growing old without you. I knew you'd think about this scenario, because you always cover all angles. That's why I had Bobby draw up a contract for us, outlining exactly what would happen if we ever did split. But remember, I don't want that at all. This is just to ease your mind. I reviewed the contract. Bobby, who incidentally is my business partner, did a thorough job. We run a small but solid legal firm providing comprehensive general legal services. Bobby took care of me in this contract. The property division left my wife with the house and its contents, while I kept our ski condo, the beach house, and my fishing cabin. Financially, it was fair, so I had no complaints. Diana earns well and prefers to manage her own finances. We agreed to maintain separate bank accounts, investments, and retirement funds, each to our own. With the mortgage paid off 2 years ago, there would be no alimony. Our kids' college funds were fully funded, covering undergraduate and a good part of graduate studies if they choose to pursue them. It was all very clear-cut, ensuring I wouldn't be taken advantage of. Bobby deserved a thank you lunch, though I wondered why she hadn't given me a heads up. Sure, there's client confidentiality, but we're partners, shouldn't there be a conflict of interest? I reasoned there was, but Bobby had also safeguarded my interests here, so I let it slide. Perhaps I'd even upgrade that lunch to dinner, darn it. Bobby and I were great partners at work, but whenever we had a moment to ourselves, we flirted like teenagers. Wait a minute, that's it. Why was I asking Diana what about me? I should have been asking myself that question. Bobby flirts with me. Clients flirt with me. Neighbors flirt with me. Women at the country club openly flirt with me. Heck, even her friend Denise makes advances right in front of Diana. Fine, if my wife wants to explore new territory, so be it. If she wants to see what's out there, fine. If she wants to compare me to other guys, okay. I'm not sure she realized she dropped me into such a target-rich environment. I'm also not sure she realized Bobby's contract left room for me to play the field too. I signed each copy of that contract right under her name, smiling like the cat that got the cream. Without a word, I handed her a copy and discreetly locked mine away in the file cabinet. All right, babe. You're free to do as you please from now on. I just have 2 conditions. No messing around in our bedroom, we need to keep that sacred. And no rebounds, I want a full 48 hours between your last rendezvous and our next one. Fair enough? Oh, Teddy, I love it when you talk like that. But remember, we won't be just messing around, we'll be making love. No, Diana. Making love is reserved for 2 people who love each other exclusively. If you engage in that with someone else, it will mark the end of us. As long as our relationship remains open, we'll be having sex. No, baby, you misunderstood. Part of the whole cuckold culture involves the loving reconnection when the woman returns home and makes love to her husband. And sloppy seconds are a significant part of that. You need to accept my extramarital activities as a sign of your love for me, allowing me to explore knowing I'll come back to you. Cuckolding culture? No, darling, that's not how this will work. Read your contract carefully. There's nothing in there defining our relationship as a cuckold marriage. A cuckold scenario involves a man whose wife has sex with other men while he remains faithful or celibate at home. Sorry, dear, that's not something I can accept. What your contract describes is an open marriage. We both have the freedom to engage with others as we choose, with few rules or guidelines attached to your agreement. So yes, we are both free agents. She picked up the contract and read it again carefully. As she realized the implications of what she had agreed to, her shoulders slumped. I knew her curiosity had taken root, and she was likely reconsidering her plans since they didn't align with her initial intentions. but her desires had grown to the point where they needed exploration. If she didn't pursue this path, she risked cheating on me sooner or later. Now, however, there were new considerations. She had something to lose too. She risked me finding someone else I might love. She was putting everything on the line. The doorbell interrupted our thoughts. Diana slipped out of my study to answer it, and I followed her. Denise breezed in through the door. So, did he agree to it? Diana glanced at me nervously. Denise followed her gaze and turned to face me. So, Denise, you're taking my wife from me every Friday night? Denise was caught off guard. Perhaps she expected me to be gone, fuming about Diana's proposal. She didn't say a word, she simply nodded. It's going to come with a cost. Both Diana and Denise were taken aback this time. If you get her on Fridays, I get you on Sundays. The ladies were dumbfounded. I took Denise's face in my hands and pulled her towards me for a kiss. I kissed her deeply and passionately without even looking at Diana. Then, I picked Denise up and carried her into my study, where I passionately made love to her on the leather couch arm. We spent 2 hours in the study, consumed by each other. Diana was right, the novelty was invigorating, sparking a passion in me I hadn't felt since high school. My arousal was persistent, and Denise's enthusiastic responses filled the room. Within an hour, I heard Diana start her car and leave. I didn't stop once. When my wife returned, Denise was already showered and dressed, and I was grilling steaks. Neither Denise nor I could engage Diana in conversation during dinner. However, the two of us shared an unbroken stream of dialogue. When it was time for Denise to leave, I kissed her gently, in that special way that always made Diana melt. See you next Sunday, I said. No, I'll see you Friday when I pick Diana up for girls' night. Maybe, but you never know, I may have a date. She grinned and left. I grinned too, heading to watch the Sunday night game. Meanwhile, Diana cried as she washed dishes. Later in bed, she reached out to me. I held her close, but reminded her we needed a 48-hour cushion to avoid any sloppy seconds. Disappointed, she rolled over. Monday. As usual, Diana left for work early. Being a real estate agent meant early mornings were standard. She left me coffee and breakfast, just like always, and the paper was on the table. Everything seemed normal, except for the smile on my face. I had to hand it to my wife, some extramarital excitement did put a spring in my step. Yet, deep down, I wished that spring had come from her. I loved my wife dearly. Denise was certainly fun, with her wild energy in bed, but nothing compared to making love with the one. While I had turned the tables on Diana, I found myself uncomfortable with the situation. I wanted a faithful wife, just as I had always had. Bobby was positively beaming when I arrived at the office. I shared the entire story with her, including my exploits with Denise, and then I invited her to dinner. She admitted she had expected me to pick up on the flexibility in the contract's language, and she giggled like a schoolgirl upon hearing about Denise. She appreciated my sloppy seconds rule and the sanctity of our own bed. She agreed to dinner but insisted we go that very night. We left work together. Dinner was delightful, desserts were exquisite, and the wines were superb. Bobby was undeniably attractive. We went back to her place and spent hours together in bed. I felt rejuvenated, like a teenager again. As we lay there catching our breath, she confided in me. There were days when the sight of your bulge was so tempting, I wanted you desperately. But your marriage meant too much to you, so I never acted on it. When Diana came up with this crazy idea, I couldn't resist, if only for this chance to be with you. Teddy, tomorrow we return to being friends and partners, but tonight, I cherished being your woman. You know, there aren't many men with a dick like yours. Even if Diana finds someone well endowed, the chances of him being bigger than you are slim to none. And you know how to use it. Add to that the love you have for her, she'll come back. Maybe, Bobby, but if she waits too long, there may not be a me for her to come back to. Darling, if that happens, I want first dibs. I told Diana she was insane to do this. You're too good a catch to release into the wild. If she's out of the picture, you're mine. We kissed, and then I returned home. Diana was asleep, so I showered and slept in the guest room. However, she was waiting for me at breakfast. Tuesday. So Denise tells me you're the best fuck she's ever had. I never realized size was such an issue until she suggested I explore. That's the reason behind all of this. I told her sex had become mundane, and some nights I just wanted you to finish and be done. I didn't feel the effort was worth the result. Today, she called me an idiot. Any woman who could land a guy with a cock like yours should be sucking and fucking him every chance she gets, just to ensure she keeps him forever. She also said if I lost you, she'd make you husband number 4, even if it meant losing her fortune to you in a divorce. Teddy, can we drop this? It was a stupid idea. I couldn't handle you making love to Denise, and now I see what I asked of you in a different light. Initially, I was tempted to accept her offer. But I needed to ensure those curiosities were truly gone. Besides, I was on a bit of a streak. After years of making love once every week or two, I had been laid twice in as many days. Denise, a petite brunette dynamo, moved like she could read my mind. Bobby, a tall, voluptuous blonde, had a taste like butter and tits that felt like heaven. Pandora's box was wide open, and I wanted to explore its depths. Pandora was enticing. Diana, there was a reason for all of this. You had a desire you couldn't suppress, you had to act on it. That desire will return, and eventually, you'll give in and cheat on me. I prefer it this way, honest and upfront. So go out, sample what you need to. Get it out of your system and see how I measure up. If you follow through this month and find that you still miss me and want to return to just us two, we'll do that together. But settle this first. I don't want to hear about it later if you change your mind. And if we go back and I catch you cheating, I will divorce you and use that contract as leverage. Reluctantly, she agreed. That night she reached for me again, but it hadn't been over 48 hours since Denise had been screaming in the study, and the news about Bobby had floored her. She fell asleep sniffing herself again, with my off-limits body spooning her. Maybe Thursday night. Wednesday. Today was golf day. I only work mornings on Wednesdays, then in good weather headed off to play 9 holes. Unfortunately, today wasn't good weather for golf. Yet, when one man's rainy day sadly robbed him of time on the links, another man's led him straight into his sexy neighbor's pants. I spotted Carla's SUV on the shoulder and pulled over. Her tire was flat, and she struggled with the jack. I jumped out to help her, and soon had her ready to go. We were both soaked, and she insisted I follow her home for a hot cup of joe and lunch. I agreed. Her coffee was awful, but what caught my attention was her body. She shed her blazer as soon as the coffee maker started, and my jaw must have dropped. Her white blouse clung to her damp skin, revealing an intricate lace pattern on a very sexy bra. I knew there wasn't much else to the bra than that delicate lace, as her exquisite breasts were clearly visible. Down, boy. You're a married man. I chuckled. I chuckled some more. My belly shook. Well, I stay in shape so my belly is pretty flat. But if I were overweight, I might have caused some damage. Once I regained my composure, I explained my wife's misguided plan to Carla. Carla laughed in response. Like me, she had a toned stomach, so there was no jiggling, but she understood the sentiment. Her breasts moved gently with each breath. We both regained our composure. Do you know how invigorating it feels for a woman when her skin is wet? There was a mutual attraction between us. We quickly shed our soaked clothes and hurried to her shower. We warmed up under the steaming water. Then we moved to her bed and continued. Afterward, we returned to the shower for another round. Finally, I got dressed to head home. Carla hadn't been intimate since her divorce months ago. Teddy, I hope things work out for you and Diana. I genuinely like you both, you're such sweet neighbors. But if things go awry, please keep me in mind. I could really see myself with someone like you. Consider this both a plea and an offer. As long as you and Diana are open, please, come be with me whenever you can. I didn't decline. Diana was waiting for me when I arrived late for dinner, but she hadn't prepared anything. We had a pleasant conversation, during which she shared that she had made her first conquest. However, she seemed disappointed. She had shown the house to a man who then made an offer. They got caught up in business calls, and by the end of the day, the seller had accepted his bid, nearly sealing the deal. They wrapped up most of the work in the business center of his hotel, celebrating with drinks, her treat. He then invited her to his room for champagne. She declined the offer for more champagne, stating that she simply wanted to have sex. Diana has always been direct in her approach. Apparently, he appreciated her approach too. Once they were in the room, they quickly undressed each other. He pushed her onto the bed and performed oral sex on her. Unfortunately, he lacked skill and wasn't familiar with her preferences. Diana enjoys oral sex with me, and this encounter felt disappointing to her. She tried to imagine arousing scenarios to create passion with him, but it was lacking. Eventually, he tired and moved on to penetrative sex. Teddy, he was so small, about 7 inches long and thin. I could barely feel him. The experience was so underwhelming. When I got home, I was angry with myself. I thought I had found someone skilled, but I didn't come close to climaxing. He was proud of lasting a long time and began boasting about it. Ever had it like that before? How does that feel? Your husband can't do this, can he? He even continued after he finished. Finally, I told him to stop mentioning you. I informed him that you're much larger, around 10 inches, and thicker. I mentioned that you're aware of my affairs, so he hadn't gained anything. He looked crestfallen, so I complimented him on being cute and thanked him for our time together. I wished him well with his move and even suggested that he bring his wife to dinner. Maybe we could swap partners. You should have seen how flustered he became. We shared a laugh over this, the first genuinely lighthearted moment we'd had in a while. Diana knew about my time with Carla. My car had been parked there when she passed by their house, which was just 2 doors down from ours. I want you back. Now I have to wait until Friday just for a chance to win you over. This isn't fair, Diana pleaded. A husband comes home every day for years to his wife. He provides for her. He mows the lawn, acts as a handyman in the garden. He holds her hand when her mother dies. She holds his when it's his father. They bring each other chicken soup when they're sick, share chores and responsibilities with their kids. He's there every day. Suddenly, the wife says, "That's boring. You keep taking care of the everyday bullshit. I'm going to fuck someone else for kicks since you're too worn out from everyday stuff to interest me." Diana, that's what's unfair. I want you back, Diana insisted. You haven't lost me. But one mistake isn't a real sample. Go scratch your itch. And you're mistaken. Friday will be 48 hours from Carla, but one of us is sure to get lucky Friday night, and I have a standing date Sunday with Denise. Looks like next Tuesday's your day. We'll see, she smirked. Thursday. I had been intimately involved 3 out of the last 4 days. 3 women told me they'd be waiting if my marriage didn't work out. My wife seemed to be coming to her senses, but wasn't yet in a position to be trusted as my one and only. I needed a break. As luck would have it, just as we were about to close up shop that evening, a woman walked in. Bobby had an appointment to pick up her car from the repair shop, so I agreed to handle the prospective client. Mary, our office manager and paralegal par excellence, had left hours earlier, leaving me alone with a tall, dark-haired beauty with olive skin. She removed her coat to my delight. She was dressed in a skin-tight turtleneck sweater dress, cut just high enough to give a glimpse of the lace tops of her stockings. High heels completed the look perfectly, and it didn't take long before I was caught in her deep, dark eyes. I came for advice on a domestic matter, she said in the sexiest, sultriest alto I had ever heard. My advice is to divorce him and run away with me, I deadpanned right back. She held my gaze until I saw her eyes begin to twinkle. She started giggling, and soon we were both laughing. I told her I was just about to leave, but if she hadn't eaten yet, we could talk over dinner. She accepted. We discussed her case. She suspected her husband of cheating but couldn't prove it. She was deeply upset about the situation and wanted to protect herself in case he suddenly left her. I gave her advice about protecting her financial assets, closing joint credit lines, withdrawing half of their joint savings, putting the money in her own account, and hiding some of her family heirlooms like jewelry, art, and silver where he couldn't access them. I suggested ways to monitor his activities, like hiding a GPS in his car, activating the people finders on their iPads and phones, and even monitoring phone use. I referred her to a detective agency if she wanted to bug their house or cars or have him followed. I advised her to line up a friend or relative to stay with in case things got worse and suggested she start keeping a daily journal of the suspicious activities. "How do you feel about revenge sex?" Tina asked, reaching across the table to take my hand. With her other hand, she undid another button on her shirt, revealing more of her ample cleavage. I grasped her hand in both of mine. I consider it a flattering offer and a tempting prospect, especially given my current marital challenges. However, since you haven't officially retained me yet, you are my client, and engaging in revenge sex with you would be a conflict of interest. "You're fired," Tina replied with a smirk. I chuckled. My groin reacted too, a familiar surge of blood flowing to an increasingly erect cock. Then I have nothing to lose. But before we proceed, I want to be sure this is what you truly want. Revenge sex may feel good initially, but tomorrow morning, you could feel guilty, thinking you're no better than your husband. And if you find out you're wrong about his infidelity, there's no turning back. You'd be responsible for causing a rift in your marriage and potentially be the one at fault in any divorce proceedings. Is that what you want? Her heavy sigh answered my question. I studied her beautiful face as she contemplated her next move. "Can I please hire you back?" "I'd be honored," I replied. "But if I do end up divorcing him and your marriage doesn't improve, we're having sex every night for a month when it's over." "I'll consider that your retainer," I said with a grin. Leaving the pub, I felt proud of how I handled the situation with integrity and class. On my way home, I stopped at the store to pick up a bottle or two of wine. As I unloaded my car after the purchase, I heard a familiar voice. "So Denise tells me you and Diana have a new arrangement and that she's never had anyone fuck her like you did," Tina said with a grin. I turned to see Tina, wild and flirtatious, standing before me. Known for her high standards and penchant for luxury, she was dressed in a pricey outfit that left little to the imagination. Her presence stirred a familiar desire, and this time, the only dilemma was whether she preferred the Ritz or the Hilton. I suppose only she would know that for sure, Tina. I guess she also mentioned my wife's brilliant idea about opening up our marriage after all these years. Yes, Teddy, she did. So now that you're kind of free to play, how about playing with me? Hun, it's your reputation. My reputation? Baby, I'm no wilder than Denise, and you started with her. What makes me so different? Well, Tina, you shared your habits from last summer. You lead guys on until they're totally hooked on the idea of sleeping with you, then it's off to Tiffany's or Neiman Marcus for some high-end shopping before they get close to sealing the deal. I'm just not willing to leave you a tribute like your usual dates. So if you want to find out if Denise's story was accurate, follow me to the Hilton now. Once we're there, you'll give me your pearls and diamond earrings as my tribute, and then I'll spend all night satisfying whatever curiosities you have. She hesitated, clutching her pearls, which were quite beautiful, sitting enticingly on her surgically enhanced bosom. It's a one-time offer, Tina. I seem to generate a lot of interest as an available single and don't plan to pursue you again if you turn me down. Denise might end our arrangement any day, so my freedom is limited, and I'm not wasting a night of it. She lifted the pearls over her head and handed them over, followed by the diamonds. They were truly exquisite. If you're as hot as Denise says, you can keep the shoes too. And if you keep me interested through breakfast, maybe even my panties. The Hilton was luxurious, and breakfast was delightful. I could definitely get used to Eggs Benedict with a side of well-loved pussy. I checked out with Tina's shoes and her fragrant panties in my pocket. I was quite late for work, but luckily had no early appointments. There were a dozen messages from Diane on my phone. I texted that I was okay and would see her this weekend. Bobby loved the story and was quick to point out that I was now in deep with. Friday. I arrived home late. Diane had already left with Denise and Tina for their girls' night out. She left a note for me, expressing her disappointment that I hadn't come home the previous night and that I wasn't there to see her off. She felt I wasn't supporting her needs in this project at all and that we needed to have a serious talk when she returned. Since I hadn't bothered to call her last night, she wasn't going to call me tonight. She hoped I enjoyed being kept in the dark about my spouse's whereabouts, but turnabout was fair play, and I needed to learn my lesson. Well, she certainly made her feelings known. Now I was looking forward to a night of hanging around the house, pacing the floor, anxious about the outcome of Diana's date. Oh, the irony of it all, years of marriage with one woman keeping me satisfied, making love once a week, which was perfect for me. But now, 5 different women in 5 nights, all over me, most offering to take Diana's place if things didn't work out. Now that I knew variety was indeed the spice of life, there was no way I was going to waste my Friday night pining for the only woman who had rejected me this past week. Funny how the love of my life was now the only one who had turned me down. Sleeping with her now felt like a distant memory. If I had my way, it was about to become at least 48 hours more distant. I was going out. I headed into the city. My kids had introduced me to alternative rock music, and there was a concert featuring 3 great bands at Radio City. I splurged on a great seat and settled into the first row of the balcony, on the aisle. I was quickly surrounded by a group of hot 20-somethings. Well, they were adults, but they were around my kids' age, so they felt like kids to me. Sure, I got some teasing about being out of place. The girl who teased me about missing the Guy Lombardo concert by a couple of decades had such a cute smile, I couldn't help but smile back. When the first band started playing and I stood up, singing and dancing along, knowing every word to every song all the bands would play that night, I reached a new level of cool. Buying a round of brews for the group certainly helped. And when they passed a joint my way, I didn't refuse. Somehow, I ended up dancing the night away in the aisles with all of them, and when we left, the Guy Lombardo girl grabbed my arm and declared I was coming with them. "I'm too old to party with you guys," I protested. "I know, but we figure you're good for at least another round," she replied. And indeed, I was. One round turned into another, and another. Eventually, the group started pairing off, but there were more women than men in our herd that night. By the 4th round, there were 3 of us left. At least the rounds were getting progressively cheaper. After taking a sip, the Guy Lombardo girl looked at me, grabbed my face, and pulled me into a deep, luscious kiss. She tasted of margaritas. Her friend insisted she deserved attention too, and when the first girl broke our kiss, the second picked up right where she left off. They set the stage for the night. Their apartment was just a block away, but the walk there was a blur in my mind. What I do remember vividly is clothes flying off bodies that were nothing short of incredible. I had forgotten how soft and supple young skin could be, but there was plenty of it to jog my memory. I was a bit worried that my stamina might falter, having been quite active with 5 different women over the past 5 nights. Now faced with 2 insatiable young women, I wondered if old Reliable could keep up. To my relief, it did. They mentioned I didn't rebound as quickly as the guys they were used to, but my stamina left a lasting impression. By morning, we were sore, sticky, and sweaty but smiling. A shower washed away the stickiness and sweat. Time would heal the soreness, and the smiles would linger. As I was leaving, I discovered Tina's gifts in my pockets. Well, not the panties, those were left at home on the kitchen table for Diane to find. The earrings looked perfect on the Guy Lombardo girl, and the pearls suited her friend well. It seemed fitting. I felt like a sexual Robin Hood, taking from the well-off and giving to the young and eager. Jewelry does have its way of smoothing things over. They persuaded me to spend Saturday leisurely strolling through museums and Central Park, followed by an evening at a blues bar in Brooklyn and another night of passionate lovemaking. I kissed them goodbye late Sunday morning and headed home, expecting. Yeah, you probably thought I was going to say Diane, right? Not quite. Sunday belonged to Denise. My feelings about Diane were uncertain at that moment. She was more than just a roommate. I still loved her deeply. We had built a life together, raising kids, sharing great times, and supporting each other through tough times. But when it came to intimate relations, my interest in her had waned. Could it be that my wife's desire to explore and open our relationship had relegated her firmly into the friend zone? She was waiting in the living room when I arrived home. Clearly, things were not all sweetness and light. Diane was furious that I had been absent all day Saturday and had stewed in her anger since Friday night. You have a lot of explaining to do. Well, hello to you too. How was your weekend? I had sex Thursday and Friday night, thank you very much. And I finally found a man who knows how to please a woman, if you must know. I wanted to talk to you about it, but you weren't here. What the hell were you up to? Girls. Well, that was crystal clear and surprisingly direct. Diane exploded into a tirade about how things were supposed to unfold. I didn't really pay much attention, but she kept going. There was something about the natural progression of cuckoldry bringing us closer together by discussing our experiences afterward, how I was supposed to stay home, wondering about her to build anticipation for our reunion, and how our lovemaking would be so much stronger, and on and on and on. Ladies, take note, it doesn't take many ends before you've completely lost your male audience. In fact, the husband handbook advises us to start thinking about something entirely unrelated by the second and, while inserting a careful yes dear no less than every 90 seconds to sustain your momentum and ensure your point is made long enough for us to drift into an entire daydream. Preferably involving someone with ample bosoms, long legs, and hair cascading over both as she lies naked beside us in bed. Wait, sorry, I got distracted. See, even writing that string of ends is enough to put a guy into yes dear mode. But what snapped me back to her monologue with a dreaded you were supposed TOS. If there's any phrase in the husband handbook that can derail a string of ends, it's you were supposed to. There are several acceptable responses to a you were supposed to argument. A guy can choose to ignore it and retreat into his blissful daydream where a young Audrey Hepburn is beckoning him to her lair to reveal her flawless body for his pleasure, a not bad option. Or he could opt for a more assertive response challenging the wife's assumption that she had grounds to expect compliance, like since when was I supposed to? Which casts doubt on her claim of authority by denying any agreement that would cede control. Or when did we decide to? Which reasserts his stake in the decision-making partnership, a tactical move recommended to women by the Idiot's Guide to Controlling and Ignoring Spouses. More assertive options range from I never said, which typically sparks a losing battle, because she usually has a recording, there's no way I was ever going to. Which might end the argument if delivered forcefully, but could also mean no sex for a month, or simply using that age-old phrase men have relied on since the Cro-Magnon days when dealing with a difficult wife. I am so upset at your assertion of your right to dictate what I should do. I don't care about sex, cooking, or anything else you bring to this relationship. If you don't stop now, I'm feeding your entire shoe collection to my dog, Bruno. That day, I opted for the succinct two-word version of the latter sentiment, fuck you. Diane seemed taken aback. I don't think she anticipated my reaction any better than she did my response to her decision to cuckold me. I wonder how she thought trying to regain the upper hand by nagging or badgering me would work any better than her decision to dissolve our exclusive relationship agreement the week before. I observed the gears turning in my wife's head. I watched as she realized she had no grounds to argue. She had been so eager to step out that she tried to safeguard herself with a legal agreement to prevent losing everything in a divorce. Ironically, she lost control precisely where she sought to gain it, by failing to limit my access to sex and secure her desired status of me as a reluctant cuckold pining for her charms. Meanwhile, she discovered that the man she had grown tired of possessed qualities that attracted other women. The final bargaining chip, his supply of sexual access, which was meant to become precious due to her restrictions, was suddenly readily available to him from a variety of sources every day. Simultaneously, her own access to intimate moments with him was no longer available, now enjoyed with great enthusiasm by friends, neighbors, and even strangers half her age. To compound matters, his new lovers made sure to let her know how envious they were that she had monopolized a man like him all those years. They praised his gentle touch, handsome face, strong arms, impressive virility, and his ability to intuitively meet their needs and satisfy them in bed. He had spent the entire past week with a different woman each night, including the last 2 nights with 2 girls half his age, yet he was now preparing for his Sunday afternoon date with her best friend. "Can we reconsider?" she asked tentatively. "I'm listening," I replied. I was wrong. No kidding. You're not going to let me off that easily, are you? Not a chance. This is a pretty big deal. She paused, clearly contemplating her next words. I knew she was edging towards suggesting a return to how things were before she decided we needed to have a conversation. However, going back exactly to where we were wasn't something I was willing to entertain. If this could happen once without warning, who's to say it wouldn't happen again in the future? I understand you're worried about our future. You didn't expect any of this, and there they were again, the ands. She was on a roll, connecting all the things that echoed my valid concerns from last week when she brought up this harebrained scheme. So, I pushed thoughts of movie stars and supermodels aside and listened intently to every word she said. And if we can burn that contract, I'll agree to a new one that says anything you want, if you'll take me back as your only woman like we were before. I sat there, contemplating her offer, or at least making it look like I was considering it. Of course, deep down, all I wanted was to have her back as my one and only. I should have been deeply hurt by what she had done, and I was hurt. Just not as much as one might expect. A week of nightly encounters with 7 different attractive women, Denise, Bobby, Carla, my olive-skinned client, Tina, Guy Lombardo girl, and her friend, had applied quite a bit of balm to my wounded heart. But Diane would need to work for this reconciliation. Blowjobs on demand, in any position I desire, wherever I want, as long as it doesn't involve public embarrassment or danger, I stipulated. She blinked. Oral sex wasn't her preferred activity, unless she was the recipient. Her head bowed slightly, and in a meek voice reminiscent of Denise, she replied, "Done." "We agree," she said. "To completion if I wish, without complaint or second thought. I will come in your mouth, on your tits, on your ass, on your belly, in your hand, and you will swallow it if I wish, every time I ask." She never swallowed. Never. It wasn't about the taste. To her, ejaculation equaled urination since it came out of the same body opening. Coming in her mouth or on her body was akin to urinating on or in her. I never quite understood how she made an exception for letting me come inside her pussy with that mindset, but this wasn't the moment to debate that nuance. I agree. Your ass is open for playtime. It is available to me for whatever I wish, unless you are sick or experiencing any kind of discomfort unrelated to sexual contact. She was a my ass is an exit only kind of girl. I wasn't particularly keen on anal sex either, so this clause was a significant concession for her. But true to her word, she was agreeing to everything. By the time I was finished, she had committed to wearing ultra-sexy costumes for Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, July 4th, Labor Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and my birthday. I initially suggested Rosh Hashanah and Chinese New Year as well, but withdrew those when she objected on the grounds that we didn't celebrate those holidays. After all, we weren't Jewish or Chinese. She did agree to sleep naked every Friday night, regardless of the weather, provided I provided an electric blanket in winter, to wear a French maid's costume for Saturday morning house cleaning as long as I shared chores, to serve drinks and snacks to me and my friends on Super Bowl Sunday and the first game of the World Series dressed in a little black dress with CFM heels and lace-top stockings, to remove one piece of clothing every hour on long car trips while I drove, to sunbathe topless on our back deck for a no-tan line look, to keep her entire body smooth and hair-free except her head, which I threw in as a joke like Rosh Hashanah, but she didn't object, so why not? To wear thongs unless she had a comfort issue like a yeast infection, yes, I meant invasion, her infections invaded my sex life, so it was fitting. To wear thigh highs instead of stockings unless the temperature dropped below 40 degrees Fahrenheit when she could wear tights, to exercise at least 5 days a week, to take cooking classes and cook naked except for an apron just for the two of us, and to cease arguing and drop any disagreement on my say-so. Yeah, I laid it on thick. However, the actual contract read differently. 15 minutes after she agreed to essentially become my sex slave for life, I placed this contract in her hands. We, the undersigned, hereby agree, 1. To love each other completely, totally, and exclusively until the day we die. 2. That the events of the past week are forgiven but never forgotten, serving as a reminder of what we both stand to lose. 3. That in the future, if either party seeks to breach the boundaries of our relationship as defined by our original marriage vows and discussion with the other spouse fails to find resolution, they will either A. Immediately drop all suggestion of their offending action, or B. Leave the marriage immediately, forfeiting all claims to wealth, property, emotional, and financial benefits of the home, to pursue the disputed pursuit. My signature had already graced the document. Diane read the contract carefully, half expecting it to be filled with legal traps akin to what Bobby had woven into our previous agreement. To her surprise, there were none. She read it again, perhaps in disbelief that I hadn't seized upon her promises of swallowing blowjobs and nightly anal sex. No traps, no demands for servitude. The document simply reiterated what we had always had, with an added clause about discussing any deviations from our norms, including involving others in our intimate life and safeguarding our original vows. "So, you don't actually want me in thongs and thigh-highs every day?" she asked. "Well, sure, I wouldn't complain if you did. But I also want a gold mine and the fountain of youth in the backyard," I replied with a chuckle. "And anal sex?" she probed. "What? And risk getting shit on my dick?" "No thanks," I laughed. "So, you'll take me back?" she asked tentatively. "Yes, but only you. No one else belongs in our sex life," I affirmed. "I'll make it up to you, Ted," she promised. "Only by returning to being my loving lady," I insisted. "No, baby, I'll be better." "No. There's nothing to make up for. Clause 2, you're forgiven. I'll tell you everything about the women I was with this week. Anything you want to know, I'll answer after we sign. Just don't ask if you don't want to hear, because once you agree to Clause 2, you forgive me. For the record, I don't ever want to know about your adventures. I don't even want to know who they are." "You don't care?" she queried. "Oh, I care. If I knew them, I'd probably do something drastic. So keep me out of jail and them out of the hospital or worse. I don't want to know. If I know them, warn them to be afraid, but never let me know. No smirking, no gossiping, not even flirting with you," I emphasized. "Are you serious? Now you're jealous. All week I've been hoping for a reaction from you, a hint of jealousy. Okay, Ted, I was foolish to start this, but you didn't even fight for me. And now you tell me you're jealous," she exclaimed. "Diane, it's different now. Now I want to keep you. Whatever was going on in your mind before is over. Now you're mine. Last week, I thought you wanted to be with someone else. I wasn't going to fight for someone who didn't want me. When I was with Denise, I was exploring possibilities, not replacements. I sampled 7 women. 2 might have caught my interest in your absence, but none compared to you. Now that you want to be with me forever, I'll fight any battle for you." She signed right away. Perfect timing, huh? "So, Teddy, do you think you could show me what I've been missing?" she asked. "Depends, hun. First, you have to toss your old contract in the fireplace. Mine's already there." "Then light it," I replied. She went upstairs and retrieved her copy. Thanks to Bobby's clever document, she had likely saved our marriage. She lit the starter log, and soon that chapter of our lives turned to ash. "Now, Ted, can we go upstairs and make love?" she requested eagerly. I chuckled. It wasn't a mocking laugh or the sarcastic chuckle I had used so often that week. It was a genuine laugh of irony. "No, hun, we're still in the 48-hour cool-down period between." I started, but before I could finish my sentence, she had already ripped off my clothes and pulled me to the floor. Nature took its course, and in another stroke of perfect timing, I finished just a few seconds after she did. Now, whenever she starts with "honey, I've been thinking," I quickly interject, "if it's not about going to bed with me, keep it to yourself." I know it's not an approved response from the husband handbook, but it works for me. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.